Greetings, non-feminist men and women of the world. Today is Monday, October 5th, 2015. Welcome to episode number 65 of the Vanguard Report. This is where we put feminism through the ringer. We don't advocate for men's rights. No. We put feminism's wrongs under the interrogation lamp. Forget about men's rights or male issues, for a while anyway. Put the spotlight on feminism's wrongs. Not men's rights, feminism's wrongs. Different emphasis there. Put feminism on trial. Point the finger at feminism and get the whole wide world pointing millions of fingers in the same direction. Do that, and so-called men's rights will take care of itself. You will pave a 12-lane highway to men's rights if you put feminism on trial for its crimes against the world. And that's all of us, not just the male part. You know, I think feminism is a uniquely evil special snowflake because it instigates a uniquely evil thing. Class warfare between men and women, a uniquely evil thing, sui generis. So, how's that for starters? I can't think of a better recipe for social disaster than turning male and female into separate political interest groups competing and striving to get the better of each other and cut each other's throats and all of that sort of nasty business. And yet, this is what feminism effectively does. It helps to bring about just the situation which I am describing. And that is why I refuse to be a feminist or call myself one, because I want no part of instigating class warfare between the two biological halves of the human race. I could go on all day with 100 other reasons why I refuse to be a feminist, but that one is pretty damn good for starters. Let me be clear. I am not a feminist. I am a non-feminist. So, I am Fiedelbogen, and on today's episode we have a third person, a guest in other words. But let's go first to my fellow host, Nick Redding, man of Canada, true son of the Alberta Prairie. Nick lives in Edmonton, not in Calgary, as I said a couple of episodes ago. What was I thinking? Nick, will you give us your customary intro and introduce our guest?
Hey everybody, I'm Nick Redding with Men's Rights Edmonton. All the activism that I do, all the stunts that I've pulled, all the appearances, the hosting of this radio show, it's all done to let people know that I am an anti-feminist men's rights activist here in Edmonton, Alberta, and I'm letting anybody know, anybody who's also of that same political persuasion, that I'm, come and talk to me, come and hang out with me, and maybe I can introduce you to some of my friends. And this week, I brought on, or I invited as a guest, N.C. Clark. She has a great YouTube channel. She's a constitutionalist. I guess she'll be able to tell you about herself in a bit here. But I found her when Vernaculus did his 10,000 subscriber and shout-out video, where he told everyone that she had recently covered the Chicago slut walk. And anybody who goes and covers a slut walk is someone that I want to give more exposure to, because I think that that is a great form of putting a very unwanted spotlight on feminism, unwanted by, of course, the feminists. So NC Clark, I tip my fedora to you, and you have the floor.
Well, before we go any further, let me interject here momentarily. We got to do that ritual thing. So, everybody, I am Spielbogen, and I am a non-feminist. Nick, are you a feminist or a non-feminist?
I am a non-feminist, sir.
And NC Clark, are you a feminist or a non-feminist?
A non-feminist.
Very well. All on the same page here today. We're all non-feminist as opposed to feminist. I mean, really, by the end of the day, there's only two things you can be. You can be a feminist or you can be a non-feminist. That basic bedrock binary, as I call it, that's like the dough and of the bottom layer of the pizza, the dough that the whole pizza is built upon. And anything else you want to put on top of that is just pepperoni and anchovies and peppers and cheese and whatnot. But that's the bottom layer of the pizza right there. You're either a feminist or you're a non-feminist. And with that, NC, I don't have any really strict program notes here. Is there anything you'd just like to say about yourself? Just whatever you want to say.
Oh my, hold on. Well, I am a constitutionalist. I am what I like to call a conservative Republican unicorn. I'm a Hispanic female who is a Republican. I mean, that's a unicorn within itself. I am a political science major. I already graduated from Northern Illinois University, and I attended this, I think it was past month, the Chicago Slut Walk 2015.
I saw the video.
Yeah. There's a 3-part video. The first one I did was very comical, to say the least. I was just having fun with that one. I drank the Kool-Aid as it... No, I literally drank the Kool-Aid. And I wanted to go... I don't know what your intentions were, Nick, for going to a slut walk, but my intentions were just to, listen, actually do what they're trying to tell me I should do. Which sounds weird, yes, because it is. Listen and believe. Go there, have fun, dye your hair, talk to people, see what happens.
Yeah, no, I go to crazy religious ceremonies all the time with an open mind like that. Yeah.
Well, listen and believe, but at some point you always have to suspend your belief, and you have to exercise the prerogative of disbelief. Otherwise, you no longer have a mind. But it's a fun game to play for a while.
Yeah, until I did a 3-parter. So the first one is very silly. The second one is just an hour-long mess of information they tried to force feed me. And then the conclusion, well, I kind of didn't walk the whole walk.
You didn't walk the whole walk?
I didn't walk the whole walk, no.
So you actually walked along in the parade for
yes,
some distance, and then at some point you said, okay, I'm calling it a day?
It was more than, it was like, cameraman, we need to get out of here. These people are going to do something really stupid. And really? I say, it really.
Stupid in terms of yourself or just in terms of something else?
Stupid in terms of, okay, we were walking on, I believe it was Michigan Ave, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but we were walking and we're passing all of these people, and these people are sort of, no one, as you said, most people are non-feminists, yes. Or they're apolitical, they really don't care. But when they see this tirade of yelling women strutting down the street scantily clad, they're going to laugh. It's funny.
I must say, you did on one of your videos, I haven't seen all your videos, there's one where you had a musical soundtrack going. It was the Hall of the Mountain King, yes. By Edward Grieg. Yes. That was, I got a good laugh out of that one.
And it was us walking down, and the conclusion is really simple. It was that the whole thing was an act. Not only was I, in a way, acting, but I was being acted upon. I know that's sort of weird. I'm quoting Lacey Green, I guess, but but I saw a woman in a niqab or a hijab. I can't remember which one. It was probably a hijab, and she was sitting off the side of on the corner of the storefront. And usually in Chicago, that means one of two things. Either she's a beggar, because there's a lot of that in Chicago, in downtown Chicago, or she's waiting for someone to pick her up or something of that sort. But still, in my brain at least, there's a correlation between that garb and a certain set of rules and a theocracy that is attached to that. I'm sorry I read too much Time magazine. I'm sorry I watch the news. I'm sorry that's the correlation that I make.
Right.
So we're walking past, and they don't even look at her. They don't even talk to her. I just got done hearing speeches about how lovely they are, how peaceful they are, how tolerant they are, how those nasty so-called MRAs, they're not MRAs, but Brother Dean and the radical Christian types were there.
Pardon me, but did they actually during the slut walk make speeches with any reference to MRAs or ABFM or the like?
Not necessarily, no. But after I went on Twitter, and this is in my conclusion as well, I found a guy that I met there, and I believe it was his daughter. I couldn't tell. The kid looked gender neutral. And he said, "We don't like MRAs." And it was a picture of Brother Dean and his group. And I was like, they're not MRAs. They spoke nothing about genital mutilation or bodily integrity. They spoke nothing about that. They didn't speak about fathers' rights. They're not MRAs.
This is what you said to this person in Chicago, then? You're saying
no, because I had no idea. You see, he did it on Twitter. This was afterward.
Oh, you were saying, well, I mean, just to be clear here, you were saying that Dean, Esme et al. Are not MRAs.
No, Brother Dean.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know who Brother Dean is. He is.
I thought Brother Dean. I thought you were talking.
No, not lovely Dean Esme. Dean Esme is a sweetheart, but
Okay. Well, I thought you were expressing his sweetness by calling him Brother Dean. Okay.
No, Brother Dean. No. Brother Dean is someone else entirely. If you know.
Somebody I've never heard of. Okay, forgive me.
Ooh. I'll send you a link later.
I used to be jealous. For a while the video Brother Dean Makes Slutwalk Feminists Cry was getting more traction than my 2014 Slutwalk, which by the way is now at 203,000 views.
Oh my!
Suck it, Brother Dean.
So anyway, you made the point that this Brother Dean character, whom I will get acquainted with later, was not a quote-unquote MRA.
He was an extremist Christian, so he was basically, literally telling people that Jesus will throw them into a fiery pit of hell.
And this, in the minds of some of these slut walkers and other feminists, I assume, it constitutes a quote-unquote MRA.
Yeah, he's just a classic hellfire and brimstone preacher, right? He shows up.
But that's enough to put him in the MRA category in the minds of certain people.
Yeah,
well, shows you how much and how little the word MRA even means anymore.
Well, they're just trying to lump us into all these people. Like, he shows up, his MO at slut walks and his congregation. They show up with shirts and signs that say "You whore, you provoke rape," all this stuff. And in NC Clark's video of the Chicago slut walk, there was cops protecting them. There was cops protecting these people with this extremely volatile Christian message. NC, are you familiar with what Lauren Southern and Milo just did at the LA slut walk?
Am I? I was watching the live stream of that entire thing, and I saw it twice.
What? I didn't know there was a live stream.
There is a live stream of that entire event.
Throw me a link to that, if there is one.
All right.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
By the way, Nick, we were talking about this Brother Dean person. Suddenly Westboro Baptist Church comes to mind.
Well, I mean, the Westboro Baptist Church there. Fuck, I'll proudly say right now that I got some inspiration from their tactics. I don't, I can't speak to their theology, but their activism is fucking spot on.
They got some savvy for the media there for sure.
Yeah, they for a while they became one-trick ponies, and I see interviews with them now, and they're very clearly they very clearly got addicted to the high that you get from being so hated, and I know that high from the "Don't Be That Girl" fiasco from 2013.
As Saul Alinsky would say, a tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag.
Yeah, exactly, and like they tried to switch it up. They tried to make music videos, but they've inspired a lot of Christian groups in the U.S. particularly. There's that one video that Dr. Randomer did a year or two ago of the feminist getting up in the faces of a group of Black and Hispanic Christians who stood on the street corner with signs that said God or death to America, right? Like they're taking the Westboro Baptist Church tactic of getting attention through really volatile messages. And you're seeing more and more churches like that now doing similar things to the Westboro Baptist Church, like Brother Dean. But when he again, he shows up, it's the same tactic. He shows up with very volatile messages like God hates fags, or in this case, you provoke rape, you whore, and then when they come up and they say, what does this mean? Then he actually has a somewhat reasonable in the context of his religion explanation, right? He has reasons. He has he has reasons behind having these very provocative statements. If you look at Brother Dean Makes Slutwalkers Cry, it starts out with like this one feminist slutwalker just obviously just turning on the waterworks, obviously just crying to try to exert power over him with her victimhood. And he's standing there and he's being very he's just telling them that he's preaching the word of God, this and that. But it's funny watching two cultists clash. But now Brother Dean, he goes around to slut walks all over the states, gets a lot of attention.
Well, he's a person to watch then. Didn't Big Red up in Toronto get into it with a street preacher at one point?
Yeah, on two occasions. Once at he's a young Black guy. He brings his congregation out to the Pride Parade and to the Zombie Walk. The Zombie Walk, of course, is just a fun event where people dress up like zombies and shuffle around the city in a big parade. He was counter demonstrating that because he felt that it was a celebration of demonic forces. When Big Red came up and started giving him shit there, and she had also given him shit at a feminist event at the. Oh no! Wait, I don't know if she gave him shit at the Zombie Walk, but I know she gave him shit at a gay pride parade for counter demonstrating there.
Interesting how these people pretty much feed off each other and giving each other shit.
But the reason I bring up Brother Dean, the reason he's so interesting is because the police were protecting him at the Chicago Slut Walk, but at the LA Slut Walk with Milo and Lauren, the police showed up and got them out of there. And here in Edmonton, the police showed up and just got us to stop talking to each other when the feminists started screaming at me.
Oh, they sort of stood between you like the thin blue line.
Well, they were much more they were much more accommodating to the feminists. They basically told me to shut up.
So I'm starting to see what might be a double standard of some kind. They were protecting in Chicago. They were protecting this Brother Dean. I don't know. Did Brother Dean show up in L.A. along with Lauren Southern and Milo?
I don't believe he did. No.
Okay. Well, I realize that police departments from one region to another will differ, but they're protecting this Brother Dean character, and yet I see them not so much protecting the more rational critics of feminism, and you know,
In
Yeah,
a,
just
yeah,
in a
pointing it
way,
out for what it's
that's an
worth.
interesting point because when I was there, what Brother Dean wanted to do, oh, he's such a character. He wanted to get. We were near the water tower, a historic water tower in Chicago,
Mhm.
and he wanted to get right next to the event. He wanted to be right there. But no, the cops had to come in and basically tell him, you have to move across the street
Right.
over yonder, and you can shout anything you want. You can half more than I think the entire video. You can just hear him in the background shouting, just weird, obscene things at these
Did,
women.
did
And
he
in
have
one,
any kind of a megaphone?
oh yes, oh did
oh
he?
yeah, oh yeah, always good.
Okay.
But that's an interesting. I did not know that. Wow.
Well, what did you
Huh.
not know again?
No, that they did that to Nick. That's
Yeah, at the first like the 2013 slut walk when we just waited for them. I knew that they were going to be like I knew where they were going to be crossing the street. So I just stood there with the I love sluts sign and just waited for them to freak out and try to find something malicious in my message of love. And I just told them over and over again. I just love sluts.
And of
And
course,
and
they found something untoward in your message.
yeah, and I mean, if anybody thinks I don't love sluts, no, I won't finish that sentence. But but then 2014, I knew that they first of all they didn't announce where they were marching to, or sorry, yeah, in 2014. But our tactic, we always like to change our tactics. We don't like to show up and do the same exact thing because they'll be ready for us. The 2014, we just sort of walked around the perimeter of the slut walk. Because what it is they rally at one point, and then they start their march. And so we walked around the perimeter of the original rally point with a sign that said "Rape culture is a myth." And we had some pamphlets designed by Fiedelbogen
Mm-hmm.
to hand out, and what it was, they of course they came to us, and then I was having a discussion with a young woman with blonde hair, and when she wasn't able to cow me. She started screaming about how people had been catcalling her when she was 10 years old and this and that, and a police officer showed up. Uh, and if you watch the video, he's begging with her. He's putting his hands together like he's praying, and he's begging her to calm down and walk away from me. And the moment I'm like, I'm just saying this, he goes, ah! He puts his hand up to me. And so yeah, they were here in Edmonton. They were a bit they were even-handed, but they were more that even hand favored the feminists quite clearly. So I guess it's not even-handed at all. But
Feminism is the establishment. There's no question about that.
well, we were allowed to stay. We weren't carted off like Lauren and Milo. Right.
Were they literally carted off, or did they just leave under instructions to do so?
No, they literally escorted her and Milo
yeah.
out of there.
Well, they escorted her. They gave her an escort. They walked on their own feet, but they were escorted. Okay.
Well, if they refused, I'm sure they would have been
No doubt.
physically removed. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny that I get told like I get sort of the shush from the cops, although they weren't there for the 2015 slow walk when we brought Lauren Southern ourselves. But they gave me the shush there, and then they in LA they escorted Milo and Lauren out, and then when you've got people shouting their hellfire and brimstone message, they get protection. They get police protection from a guy standing there going, "I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you." There's always some pathetic, simpering white knight who's trying to seem benevolent while actually threatening Brother Dean.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that they would protect this Brother Dean, as I said, and not, well, not be so indulgent to people like you, Nick. But we need to see more examples before we can begin to extract any kind of pattern from this.
Well, no, I can tell you right now, feminists want their opposition to be foaming at the mouth fanatics like Brother Dean.
I
They
agree.
want their opposition to be the worst kind of people imaginable because they want to create a caricature of their opposition, because when they do that, anybody who opposes them on any grounds at all will get glued to that caricature and identified with it. This is
I'll tell you this, guys. Sorry to interrupt, but I'll tell you this. That's a good point, because during the speeches, if you hear, they always reference that crazy extreme group. That very tiny, first they call them pathetic, then they call them bozos, then they say, well, we should support each other because we all just want to help each other, peace and love, man, and all of these things. If they're pathetic, ignore them.
Well, they're trying to instill fear in anybody who would oppose or speak against feminism, or just frankly say they're not feminist. I mean, this is aimed at any uppity attitude that might come from the non-feminist sector. Ultimately, this is where it's going.
I must say, though, when I was talking about the conclusion earlier, why I left. The reason was because that atmosphere, if they didn't care about or make a correlation to that degree, knowing all the information we know about the Middle East and their culture and everything of that sort, and how, let's face it, if they had to, I don't know, come out with some kind of idea of what a patriarchy looks like, I think that's kind of it. So they didn't make that correlation. I myself, walking, felt unsafe around them, because now you're dealing with people who say one thing around the sluts at the slut walk, who said one thing, and now in practice they're doing everything but. You understand? So when I was walking with my camera guy, and the minute I saw her off the corner of my eye, I said, we have to get out of here. We have to get out of here now, because they will throw, if anything were to happen, plus they were very angry at saying fuck the police, they were saying all of these things about the cops and all of that kind of nonsense. These people are protecting them from, I guess, Brother Dean, or their white knights are protecting them. Something's going to happen. And if something were to happen, they don't give a shit about me. I'm sorry to curse, but that's exactly it. They do not care about me. I am just a cog in their wheel, a red-headed cog in their wheel, and if something were to happen, which it did sort of happen, because someone who loves art, obviously, went to the Picasso statue in the middle of downtown Chicago and wrote Black Lives Matter on it in chalk, and the cops swarmed in. If something were to happen, you would get stuck, and there is no way they could help you. That's why they give you on that pamphlet, the little invitation, the Lawyers Guild hotline, because Lord knows they don't care. They know something might happen because they're really antagonistic.
Now, you sort of lost me a little bit there. When you say they, you're talking about the...
I'm talking about the feminists, the organizers of the event that I went to,
yeah.
the Slut Walk Chicago, yes.
And they
know.
They know what now?
They're presuming that something is going to happen due to the antagonistic rhetoric that is being portrayed here. Because realize, that's a good point Nick raised. They basically pretty much were fine with Brother Dean being there. They didn't tell the cops to come in and take them away, which the cops would have probably done if they asked nicely enough.
So they were okay. I think the important thing here is that they were okay with Brother Dean being there. And the original thing where this all started was, that is how that they want Brother Dean to be the poster kid for the enemy.
Of course, yes.
There we go.
Well, that is just my belief, I guess, but...
Well, you were saying, they called him an MRA.
Exactly.
Well, now this is spot on, because this is all of a piece with what they've been doing for some time now. I mean, the MRA is a political myth built out of straw, which they are creating to stand in for anything that might be a threat to them. And that includes anybody who might just stand up and say, I'm not a feminist, and say it too many times, in an inconvenient way. Well, that's it. You're an MRA. You're like Brother Dean, or you're like Elliot Rodger, or you're like some other monster du jour. This is their tactic.
Witches, commies, terrorists,
etc., etc. But they are defenders of the faith. I mean, the faith being feminism. They are trying to, they know that there is a threat to feminism. They know that feminism is becoming unpopular, that more and more people are rising up against it, and this is their little trick to guard their perimeter. Create a false enemy and then brand you as that false enemy if you say one hard word about feminism. And so MRA has become, at least in the mouth of a feminist, a completely nonsensical, vacuous expression. If they don't like you, they'll call you an MRA. If they sense a threat coming from you, they'll call you an MRA. That's how I see it.
And that's basically what happened.
Brother Dean is a quote unquote MRA.
I will be fair for now, but yes, because one of them out of the many that were there tweeted that. But I just, it is according to their philosophy, yes, Brother Dean is an MRA.
Okay. Well, I take some pretty wide liberties with the term feminist as well, but I like to think that I base my usage on something that's a little more logically grounded. But okay, fine. If they're going to do that, then they should understand that they are licensing the other side to use similar tactics against them. Now, the more they use those kind of tactics, the more they erode and undercut any kind of moral high ground that they might pretend to stand upon. So, let them keep doing it, and let people on our side, the non-feminist side, continue to observe and make note and comment on what they're doing. That's all I've got to say on that.
Well, if that's all you have to say about that, there's a question I've been wanting to ask and see. So you're a constitutionalist. That means that you you hate Jews and blacks and stuff?
Did somebody say that?
I just really, really love the original Constitution of the United States. That's pretty much it.
I don't know enough about it. I was raised, actually, you can probably tell by the dreadlocks, I was raised super left wing. And now all my friends are, libertarians and conservatives and right wingers. I just I've been hearing that the answer to 1984 is 1776 and things like that. Is that just some sort of buzz phrase, or is that something that you would agree with?
I believe the Constitution as a document, as it's interpreted by usually libertarians. I would probably be in that camp, but it does defeat that horrible 1984 dystopian future that people are saying we're probably going to live in.
Oh, I was actually born in 1984.
Literally.
Lucky.
Yeah, and I it's my favorite book, and I look around and I think we're very much on the cusp of it, actually.
Well, we're at a point of crisis where we can take one fork in the road or take the other, and God help us if we make the wrong decision.
I think our generation is the generation that will probably kill context.
Kill context? How?
It will kill context. For example, we have situations where, and sometimes I do stand-up comedy. sometimes on occasion. I know, a woman funny? That's ridiculous. Uh, but
I want to say I love your video about why women aren't funny. By the way.
aw, thanks. It's true though. Did you also like my Hitler joke, or?
I didn't.
I don't. I was watching it on my phone at work. I don't. I don't remember a Hitler joke.
All right.
Why would you joke about such an awesome guy?
But the killing of context implies that we only want to hear what we want to hear. We like snippets. We like taking things basically out of context. For example, when Daniel Tosh did his joke about his sister supposedly, being raped, a rape joke, we always see a portion of the joke. We do not see the whole part of the joke. It's always that portion, and then it's cut off. There's no punchline. There's no nothing. And society is fine with that. I remember when I first heard that he was in trouble, and I was like, well, what is the full context of the situation? I go to the news reports. The news reports say, well, Daniel Tosh did a very horrible joke, and it was offensive to many people. It's secondhand information. These are feminists being mad because another angry feminist was sitting in a nightclub and blogged about something. This is secondhand information. This is information she doesn't even know what the joke is. She just knows at that moment in time she has to be offended. And to me, as a person who loves funny, who loves comedy, that's a red flag.
Yeah, well, and of course,
that was the group mind working there.
I've seen a couple of feminist stand-up comics in my time, and it was
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was pretty painful.
Is it true that feminists have no sense of humor?
Well, you know how many feminists it takes to change a light bulb, right?
I've heard several variations on that joke, but what's yours?
That's not funny.
Oh, that's the classic variation. I've heard several hundred. Yeah, that's not funny. Well, that is funny. I mean, well, that's funny.
But just for our listeners, the Daniel Tosh incident, it happened when he told the joke about, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy. He told a joke about rape, and then some feminists in the audience spoke up and said, rape isn't funny, and comedians have to deal with hecklers. And he goes, wouldn't it be hilarious if 5 guys raped her like right now? And
people laughed.
Yeah, but then after that, it blew up. It became this giant fucking thing. Where he said that it would be funny if a woman got gang raped.
Exactly. And our culture in our society allows that to happen. It allows people to get offended, take things out of context, and now some group has to spring about and fly to her rescue because of what? Because she said that something wasn't funny.
And it demonstrates a complete, like, their stereotype as not having a sense of humor, but it really does demonstrate their complete lack of understanding of what is funny, what is a joke. Right, because saying the default value of a joke is a lie, right? When you say, "Hey, everybody, wouldn't it be funny if 5 guys raped her right now?" The fact that everybody laughed is because it's such an incredibly inappropriate thing to say. And there he was. He said it. Oh my God.
Not only that, comedy deals with over-exaggeration. Is it true that 5 guys can just break into the club and rape her right in front of everyone?
And everyone would find it funny.
Yeah. No, it's an exaggeration. And it's this exaggeration that I guess, not to get all neuroscience, it's their amygdalas in their brain just, I don't know, just go on full alert and just go, wee, I have to do something about this. This is not funny.
I call woo-woo on you.
Yeah, it's just that, and I saw it a lot in comedy, and I look at it and I just go, our generation, at least my generation, I was born in 1991, is the generation that's going to kill context because we do not care until it happens to us.
No, until our context gets ignored.
Exactly.
By those other people, then the shoe's on the other foot. Yeah. until that, until then, it's one rule for me, another rule for thee.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think anyway, on the subject of humor, all humor, and this is an important point, all humor contains an element of the ugly, or the painful, or the ridiculous. I mean, the comedy is not funny, or comedy is not pretty, I should say. Comedy is not pretty. All humor contains an element of the ugly, and that's what gives it its punch or its spice. And when some people just see the ugly in there, and that's all they see, and they don't see the funny, the alchemy that creates the funny out of the ugly, those are the people with no sense of humor. And that description applies to a lot of feminists.
Well, it applies to a lot of women, and I know saying this as a woman is annoying to a lot of them, but women aren't funny. They're not made. They're not. How shall I put this nicely so they don't yell at me later?
I think they've already said plenty to make them yell at you. I think that there's no getting out of it now. You better brace yourself for this storm that's coming.
Oh man, they're not. At least evolutionarily speaking, they're not. It's not in their nature to be funny. I'm funny because I had to be funny. I had to deal with bullies, and I'm not a very physical person. I'm not a very violent person. So the way I diffuse a situation is by being funny. It's saved me countless times. But for women, they don't really need that. Like when they describe a man that they want to be romantically involved with, there's always that adjective of, well, he has to be funny. Well, when you describe a woman that you want to be with, she doesn't really have to be. Women don't really have to be funny. It just so happens some are, and when they are, it's usually a skit. It's usually somebody writing something else for them, and they just act it out. Or it's them talking about sexual encounters to be quote-unquote edgy, or just really banal, boring things. As with men, their range of funny and the topics that they cover is incredibly vast, because it has to be. They're trying to, at least from Christopher Hitchens, he wrote an article called Why Women Aren't Funny. And this is where I sort of get this from, where men have to have that range. They have to be funny because they're trying to look for a mate. And that's one thing women like. So that's just his hypothesis on it, and I think it was interesting.
Yeah, it gets into a little bit of evolutionary psychology there.
Well, I think I might be. This might come across as incredibly misogynist, but hey, it's the Vanguard Report. Are
you suggesting that the Vanguard Report is a bastion of misogyny?
Well, of course it is, but
oh no! I've always made clear that I have no prejudicial feelings one way or the other about women as a group abstraction.
Well, I'm the supreme, what is it, the supreme grand wizard of the patriarchy, which is another gig I'll tell you about later on. And see, I actually ran for city council on the patriarchy party platform. But
he got a surprising number of small number of votes. I mean, small number, but a surprising number. Something like what was it? About 500.
448 votes.
448,
yeah. I ran for city council.
It was actually a good little chunk for the precinct.
I came in dead last, and I got 100 fewer votes than the "Don't Vote for Me" anarchist guy.
Oh my God! He was joking, and his voters were joking. The whole thing was a joke on that one.
But anyway, I think part of the reason that like there's a lot of unfunny guys too, but the reason you see such a relatively high number of funny men in comparison to women is because clowning involves a level of humility that a lot of women just don't have. Right, intentionally making yourself look stupid is something. Yeah, is something that is something that is so alien to so many women. I think. I don't know if that's biological or cultural, but that is an observation that I've made for a long time myself.
They'll make fun of someone else. They'll always talk about my boyfriend, my mother. I hate having this relationship with her. Just other things, just not themselves, which is, or if it's themselves, it's sort of in a very grandiose, look at me, I'm awesome. I'm
Well, but
awesome sexually as well, which gets into that weird category of.
yeah, but like you look at male comics, it's like they take something like. Did you ever watch Metalocalypse?
Yes, I love that show.
Yeah, yeah, and there's you saw the episode where they dealt with stand-up comics, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, and the one guy, he explains to them when they're failing at comedy, he explains to them that as a stand-up comic you have to hate yourself
Yep.
to succeed. Yeah, and you basically have to get up on stage and shit on yourself. And after I saw that, I thought about all the stand-up comedians I had ever seen, and they get up there and they take something that they something about themselves that they don't like, be it fat, black, gay, Jewish, whatever, even physically handicapped people. They go up on stage and they take that thing about themselves that they don't like and they just go on and on about it. But I mean, but and again, that's the essence of clowning: is intentionally making yourself look stupid. Like look at Jerry Lewis, you know. But yeah, I don't know if I don't know if that kind of self-loathing is just less common in women or if it just manifests itself differently. I don't know.
It's less common in women.
I
It's less common in women.
I really,
Yeah,
don't see
that's why,
self-loathing as a female trait. It's women and self-loathing doesn't go together. But men and self-loathing, now that really goes together.
That's
in
why
my-
I make
in my
fun of
observation.
myself. Like when people go, "Oh, you're a woman," and I'm like, "Please don't talk about my disability. Please stop. It's okay."
Male feminists are notable for their self-loathing.
Yeah, but they're
Oh,
they're
yeah.
not funny. They are not funny at
No,
all.
they're not funny. They're not funny at all. They're
Well, they try.
they try and they make themselves more unfunny by trying. No, they lack humor even more than female feminists do. I mean, I would take Andrea Dworkin. Andrea Dworkin makes me laugh way more than who's your favorite male feminist? Hugo Schwitzer. Well, he's Hugo Schwitzer is socially dead now, but I don't know if you know who Hugo Schwitzer is.
No, I don't.
Oh well,
Hugo Schweitzer was the king of the Meninginas.
Ooh, so we
He
had a
was
kingdom.
he was a former college professor at Pasadena Community College, I think it was, in California, and he was a self-appointed pope of male self-loathing. And well, if you know the classic political male feminist mangina type, Hugo Schwitzer was the platonic archetype of that type.
And he kept on banging his hot young students,
Great.
He
much
died
to the
in trouble.
chagrin of his wife.
He socially,
Oh no.
he socially crashed and burned finally, and the details fade from my memory at this point. But anyway, he's no longer on anybody's radar screen. He has mercifully hidden himself in the world now.
No, and I was saying earlier that I was raised super left wing. When I was a teenager, I thought the world of Michael Moore. I'm gonna make that shameful
Oh my God.
admission right now. I thought he was the most awesome thing ever. And I mean, I got a lot of my stunts from him, or my impetus to do my stunts, like running for the patriarchy party. Like he actually had some pretty funny gags. One time he ran a ficus plant for office, and I thought that was pretty funny. The ficus plant actually got more votes than the Republican he was running it against. But that's the joke itself, not the actual politics behind it that I appreciate now. But I saw. Speaking of self-loathing male feminists, I actually saw on YouTube a little while ago an episode of Politically Incorrect with it had Michael Moore and
It had Christina Hoff Sommers on there.
Christina Hoff Sommers in
Yeah,
the
I
same
saw
thing.
that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, and it was amazing. Like
It was.
watching like Michael Moore. He was like, I mean, now like now I'm very disillusioned, and now that watching him sweat and simp and everything like that, it was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting watching a guy like that, try to carry on a political conversation with Bill Maher and Christina Hoff Sommers. But I don't. I mean, in that situation, he was trying to be funny, right? But he was failing miserably. You know? I don't know where to go with that. It
No, no, no. I remember because he was talking about toxic masculinity. He didn't have the phrase for it at that time, but he was basically saying that all these shootings that are occurring, all this violence that's occurring, well, men don't even need to really be here. Why can't we just let women run things? Why can't we just do that? And I know he was saying it as a joke
Was this
in a
in the
way.
same time frame as Columbine?
It sort of was, I believe.
Okay.
And I know he was doing it sort of in a sarcastic way half of the time. But no one was really laughing.
No, no, and I mean, you have Bill Maher standing up and giving his thing about how it's easier for men to nod along, and that men have all these heart attacks from stress or something like that, and Michael Moore is sitting there and he's trying to sound half joking about it, but he's clearly begging him to just go along with what the feminists in the room are saying.
Which was the weird thing because it was the joke. Bill Maher already set up the joke, and he said, well, this is how guys act. They just nod along, and it's annoying me. And then cut to Michael Moore, and he's just nodding. He's just nodding to all the feminists in the room and saying, well, why not? Why can't we nod?
Yeah, and
So it was like people were laughing. There's a weird thing where people are not laughing with you. They're laughing at you. And I think people were just laughing at him.
Yeah, I don't know. Fetal Book, and I'll send you a link to that later. It's pretty disgusting stuff. But I think we have some news items to get on here, right?
Oh, news items. Well, we've got the usual queue list here of articles. I read through them, and then we talk about them and dissect them as we go along, which can be fun. And maybe give us a little change of topic, or launch us down a different avenue. Let's see, what do we got here? How about all this business that's going on with Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn in the United Nations and all that? I think, NC, you're familiar with that, I'm sure.
Reluctantly.
Reluctantly. Well, no, I'm not reluctant. I embrace this because I see the implications.
Yeah.
It's the writing on the wall, okay? I mean, they got themselves into trouble with this one. I mean, they're backpedaling like hell to get away from this. They wrote that, they made that ridiculous statement. They made a spectacle of themselves in front of this high, august world organization, and they were like little kids out of their league. That's how I see it. They were sporting a completely ridiculous message, and they miscalculated how that message would be received, and now it's coming back to bite them, and they're trying to back away from it, pedal away from it. But this is Q number 1 on the Q list. I thought I would just read through it, and we can talk about it as we go along. This is the article from Time magazine. UN says cyber violence is equivalent to physical violence against women. And they put out a report, and the report is available, and I've read the report, maybe half of it, and it's a bunch of bilge water, basically. It's the kindest thing I can say about it. So here's the article. UN says cyber violence is equivalent to physical violence against women. 73% of women have experienced cyber violence, according to a new report. Okay, well, it's better be a good report to convince me of that. The statement that 73% of women have experienced cyber violence, there's just no reason to believe that. It's an extraordinary claim that demands extraordinary proof. And I have pretty high standards of proof if they're going to say something like that. Cyber violence is just as damaging to women as physical violence, according to a new UN report. Okay? Cyber violence is just as damaging to women as physical violence, according to a new UN report, which warns women are growing even more vulnerable to cyber violence as more and more regions gain internet access. So this big fist just pops out of their computer screen and punches them in the nose. That's cyber violence, okay? Sounds like a good horror movie. The report calls itself a wake-up call about cyber violence as a systemic concern, especially as technology is spreading across more regions. Presented by UN Women and the UN Broadband Commission, the report estimates that 73% of women have endured cyber violence and that women are 27 times more likely as men to be harassed online. No, I would say it's more like 24 times more likely. And I have a very, very, very precise way of calculating that. Okay, sarcasm off. In Europe, 9 million girls have already experienced some kind of cyber violence by the time they're 15. Like somebody insulted them in a chat room somewhere. I don't know.
In all likelihood, at the hands of another woman.
Cyber violence. Okay, yeah, that hasn't said much about. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Nick. I didn't think of that. I mean, violence can come from anybody. It doesn't say male violence or instigated by men. I guess we're just sort of expected to just assume that. Well, anyway, Anita Sarkeesian, a gamer and activist who has long agitated for more action against cyber violence. Anita Sarkeesian, a proven flagrant liar, by the way, spoke at the launch of the new report titled Cyber Violence Against Women and Girls, a Worldwide Wake-Up Call. And here there's a link. Here in Q number 1, there's a link in the article. You can click on the link and you can read this report. It takes you to a PDF file. The UN defines violence against women as any act of gender-based violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts. Boy, that's pretty broad. That's pretty friggin' broad there. Sexual or psychological harm. What kind of sexual harm could come through a computer screen as distinguished from psychological harm? I'm not quite sure. The report notes that cyber violence is an extension of that definition. There we go, an extension of that definition. Taking a lousy definition and extending it, in other words. That includes acts like trolling, hacking, spamming, and harassment. Well, for the record, I have been accused of harassing online and trolling because I intellectually challenged people and I wasn't always polite about it. Okay, oh, and spamming. That's a word that's been used pretty broadly too. Spamming and trolling, they're sort of the same operation. Of course, hacking still has a narrow definition. You've got to have some skills to do hacking. You've got to really get into somebody's hardware to do hacking. But anyway, the report also argues that cyber touch is recognized as equally as harmful as physical touch. Cyber touch. Does somebody want to say something about the concept of cyber touch? Somebody want to chime in about that?
I believe the technical definition is woo.
Woo. Woo woo. Cyber touch. That would be like a disembodied holographic hand reaching out of your computer screen.
Cyber touch, like you and NC Clark and myself and our producer James, we're all cyber touching each other right now. This is kind of a, this is sort of a love in. It's a Google love in right now. We're all cyber touching each other, and if
Feel the
somebody,
love.
yeah,
This is great.
It's a very, very mystical concept, this cyber touch. Oh, cyber touch is recognized as equally harmful as physical touch. In other words, they're talking a bunch of bloody rot there. Why am I reading this? Cyber touch is recognized as equally harmful as physical touch. And, oh, by the way, I'm not alone here. I think it's a bunch of bloody rot, and a lot of other people do. A lot of other people do. This is where somebody has jumped the shark. Okay, cyber touch is recognized as equally harmful as physical touch, suggesting that online harassment might be, get ready for this, suggesting that online harassment might be just as lethal as domestic violence or sexual abuse.
Have you seen Thunderfoot's response to this? Responses to this? Oh boy, you gotta watch it. What do because Anita Sarkeesian, when she's talking to the UN, she says that the daily grind. She says, "What is it? It's not just what's illegal and illegal. It's the daily grind of being told you suck and you're a liar, and people making attack videos against us on YouTube."
I've heard about that. Yes.
Yeah, and so Thunderfoot, who has gotten an unbelievable amount of hate, from Muslims and from feminists over the years. Because when he started, right, it was during the rise of the new feminism, or the new atheism, rather.
That was the atheism. That was the atheism plus era, wasn't it?
No. He was briefly involved with atheism plus, and free thought blogs, until it was very clear that he wasn't going to toe the line. But he's gotten all kinds of hate, and so he took all the hate that he's received in video form of people saying that he deserves to have like a telephone pole rammed up his ass for eternity, and things like that. And he's saying, so is this the kind of cyber violence that people should be protected from? Because of course they're not talking about Thunderfoot.
Was it MRAs who made that suggestion?
No, it was the telephone pole up the ass was a guy known as what is his name? In Mendham. And he and Snake Plisskenist had a very amusing back and forth for a while there. But in Mendham is an absolutely insane YouTuber who's been around since like 2000, since YouTube started basically. But he's a crazy old man. But no, of course, people saying mean things to you and me and Thunderfoot and Girl Writes What. That's not the kind of cyber violence that's really harmful that they want to deal with. It's anybody criticizing Anita, and a lot of attention.
Nick, I think they do want to deal with the kind of cyber violence you just mentioned. I think they want to create a very expansive category so they can go out and mop up anybody they want to mop up in the future, like a carte blanche.
Yeah, well, ultimately, it's very plain to a lot of people, and this UN business has been very worrying. Like the conversation that's been going on in Facebook and Skype groups that I'm in is people like me saying, "Holy shit, this is really scary," and other people saying, "Don't worry about it. Nobody takes it seriously." And
that's what they said about the Nazis back in the day,
Well, Yeah, well, I mean, there is always the danger of of what's that law?
I don't mean to go
Concurrence,
Godwin on anybody here,
Godwin's
but
law. Yeah.
no.
But I mean, like, yeah, I mean, and again, Vernaculus took it apart. And a lot of people have looked into it. The report, the report on cyber violence is notoriously poorly researched. The links are a lot of people.
Anything that atrociously written has got to be poorly researched.
Yeah, and it is a people are saying that this just takes credibility away from the UN.
The UN has jumped the shark. Jumped the shark not only for itself, but jumped the shark on behalf of other people as well, like feminists.
Yeah, well, it's taking the feminist tactic of crying victim and ramping it up to what a lot of people see as its inevitable conclusion, right? It's just a great big excuse to enact totalitarian measures.
Yes, I agree.
NC, do you have any insight input on this?
I don't take the UN very seriously. I mean, we remember the what is her British name?
Emma Watson.
Thank you, Emma Watson. He for She campaign. She was a spokesperson, I believe, for the UN. She was speaking there. Come on now. I don't take them seriously on matters of feminism all that much. I don't take them seriously in regards to the economy.
Well,
what happened to Greece. I don't take them seriously.
It's not a question of taking seriously.
I know, but
taking seriously is an expression that's subject to different levels of interpretation.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, they have got an army.
That's the thing
that's
that's
the kind
troublesome.
Of serious. On that level, you would want to take them seriously.
I'm flabbergasted by this entire thing, considering the fact that it's a conference that someone said cyber violence is equivalent to physical violence. The UN knows better. They
don't even define cyber violence anyway, do they?
No, it's all something. The definition never gets nailed down. It's all very loose, right? It is very expansive.
It's a big bucket of Jello.
Yeah. Yeah, so that if somebody feels if one of these I mean, it all comes back to that excellent essay on the differences between social justice warriors and chanters, which when like in the past when Fidelbogen for whatever reason has had technical difficulties that made him go silent, and I was just left hosting the show, I just pulled that up and started reading it because it's something that everybody should know.
Yes, NC, if you haven't read that, you really ought to.
Yeah, I'll send a link to you to that after the show, NC.
All right.
But it describes it like in very objective terms. It's not making fun of anybody, but it talks about how like their social structure and their values, and social justice warriors value arbitrariness. They value arbitrariness in that they like ad hominem to them is not a fallacy. It's their rule, right? Something is true or not depending on who's saying it, and depending on the level of status that person has in their community. So this is what we're looking at as SJWs take over law when they're given seat at the UN. We're going to be transitioning from here's a set of laws. And here's the crimes have a very strict definition, and you have to prove that a person has met the criteria for a crime before you convict them. What we're going to be transitioning to is if a person has high enough status, they can point at a person, name a crime, and that's it. That's it.
What they're doing is they're taking their social justice SJW culture and spreading it out over the world in general and pulling us all into that culture. It's the same pattern that any cult would follow if it grew beyond a certain point and began to metastasize into society.
Yeah. And it starts on a microscopic level. It starts with the attitude that they expect everyone to observe their cultural norms, but it's completely alien to them to respect the cultural norms of other local communities.
Because those other local communities are, by their reckoning, on the wrong side of history. They're the ones that are on the right side of history.
So this is how we see them taking over basically both the right and the left, the mainstream right and the left anyway, the religious communities, bondage communities, heavy metal, hip hop, punk rock, anything, any
every little sector they can possibly insert their tentacles into, they will.
Yeah, because they expect to have their most childish caprices catered to, but they don't see any value in any culture other than their own.
Well, they're on the right side of history, and they are utopians, so they're marching toward that Emerald City at the end of the yellow brick road.
And other people, the thing is, like, the open-mindedness of other communities actually will be used against them.
That's how they get their foot in the door. The open-mindedness is an open door that lets them walk right in.
No, that's
how they got involved with gamers, I believe, because gamers are incredibly open-minded to the idea of people joining their hobby, and then this happens. So, yeah.
And I'm not. I don't want anyone for an instant to think that we're preaching against open-mindedness.
No. It's just that things like this happen, and I think the best way to go about dealing with it is to address it as bluntly as possible.
You don't want to be so open-minded that your brains fall out. That's the thing to avoid. Minds are like parachutes that only work when they're open. And the ultimate open parachute is one with a big hole in the top. Now, how good does a parachute like that work?
But in the end, I mean, if open-mindedness has to be tempered with having actual values, because those who stand for nothing will fall for anything.
Any principle which is pushed too far will work out to something evil. It has a limiting factor about it, which limits how far you can push it. I mean, a little bit of salt on your food, nice. A bucket of salt on your food, not so much.
So but. Yeah, I mean, they're taking over everything, and it really does. Before he spoke to me, Fiedelbogen actually didn't know anything about the Borg.
No, Nick, that's not true. I've heard of the Borg. I was not, intimately acquainted with the Star Trek tradition, but yeah, I knew what the Borg was.
Oh, sorry. But they are a perfect analogy. I mean, they take over every system, every civilization, every race that they find. They simply, and if you watch that episode, I've been watching that episode where they have that one Borg that they name Hugh on the Enterprise. Been watching him, like when he gets disconnected from everyone.
Yes, and Picard did not want to. That was the one with the virus.
Yeah,
they could have sent Hugh with the virus and destroyed the entire.
What a fucking pussy. But
Kirk would have done it. I'm just gonna say that.
Kirk would have done it, and he would have raped them afterward. And then he would have left forever. Right?
Yeah, but that's a good episode. It's a really good episode.
And actually, if you play the video game Star Trek Legacy, you actually have Kirk dealing with the Borg, but he doesn't know it. Um,
But yeah,
but
when he was disconnected.
in his conversations with the people, because the thing about the Borg is that they seem like zombies, but they're just having trillions of conversations all the time, and
Yep.
so like they can't really be bothered with what's actually going on around them, as far as interacting with them on a personal level. But they
So you're saying they're constantly on Twitter?
yeah. I thought the Borg will happen when we upload Facebook to your brain. Yeah,
Nice.
but the when he's talking with them, his beginning and end of every conversation with them, when he's having actual philosophical conversations with the crew of the Enterprise, he's like, don't you want to be assimilated? Like, resistance is futile. It's going to happen. And now that if you watch Honey Badger Radio, they've got what's his name, Kevin Logan, on as a regular guest, and he reminds me of Hugh so much. Like, he just doesn't get that other people don't want to be assimilated. He talks about things like they're just absolutes. They're just going to happen. Resistance is futile. Like, I swear to God, if you listen to the Honey Badger Radio episodes with Kevin Logan, it's like watching that episode of Star Trek with Hugh.
If you're on the right side of history, of course everybody's going to be assimilated. I mean,
and
I've never questioned rape culture before. I was like, oh my. Yes, he did say that.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I know that you and I were listening to it live when he was talking with Theron Meyer.
Yes.
He's going. Oh, the MRM is just so incredibly transphobic. And then you've got Theron Meyer, a very intelligent trans person, going, well, that's not been my experience. And, like
for someone who cares about people's narratives, he sort of ignored hers. He really did.
Yeah, and I mean, and I really liked the way she stood up to him too.
Yep.
Yeah, and hopefully something is going to get through to him, but or maybe we can just upload the virus of individuality and send him back.
Well, since this Kevin Logan is a guest on the Honey Badgers, maybe we can get him on here at least once.
I actually talked to him about that today, and his schedule doesn't work out. He lives in England, right? So right now
there's about a 9 or 10 hour gap there between their time and ours.
Yeah, basically the Vanguard Report starts at midnight England time and goes to 2 a.m. So that's unfortunate.
He would be a good candidate for our coexistence.
That's exactly what on Twitter. That's exactly what I've been trying to. The topic of coexistence is exactly what I want to talk about him with. And NC, just so you know, me and Fiedelbogen are sorry. I've got acid reflux.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Fiedelbogen are. We're constantly trying to put the question to feminists. What does it look like to you? How do you see feminists and non-feminists, not even anti-feminists, but feminists and non-feminists, coexisting with each other?
Not a question they're comfortable with.
Because ultimately they simply expect, just like Hugh on the Enterprise, they simply expect that non-feminists will eventually become feminists.
That the world will become feminist. That the feminist worldview will become absolutely hegemonic down to the last molecule of social existence. And there will no longer be anybody to question it, and no longer be the intellectual wherewithal to question it. Complete takeover, and this is totalist, if not totalitarian.
Yeah, it's interesting watching them work because the the idea of people dissenting against feminism is both appalling and at the same time it's almost mythical. Like they don't understand why people would want to not agree with them. Why people
Well,
wouldn't.
let's put it this way. And I did an article on my blog about using the Big Five, which are 5 characteristics political scientists use to categorize people in certain political. It's political indicators. So I basically sort of try to gauge your psyche to see which political party you would best fit in. So I decided, well, let's look at feminism. Feminists, for the most part, at least with agreeableness on that trait, they want you to like them. They really do. And it could be because they are women. Women are naturally prone to in-group bias. They want you to like them. That entire event I went to, they tried to bring about this air of, let's love each other as women. We should love each other. This should be a positive space. And those guys over there, they're not bringing in the positive space. We need a positive area for us to all agree. And we're just going to preach to the choir, walk down a block, and do whatever we have to do to promote this idea. And
Preaching to the choir to promote an idea among the choir.
well, that's the phrase they used. I don't like. They basically said, well, they actually said, we're preaching to the choir here. They know that the people who are going there are feminists. They want to be in an area, in an environment that agrees with them.
A safe space, yes.
Yes, a very safe space. And
they don't want to be triggered.
Pretty much. And it could be possibly because they have that psyche that tells them that in their mind that people should agree with them. We care. Why don't we? They say that they care. They say that, you know, we are tolerant, we are positive. Why don't people like our positiveness? And note, feminism, at least from a metaphysical standpoint, with its ethics and its morality, it has its own morality, and it basically implies that you must think as a woman, because as a woman, things happen to you. If I were a weak woman, I would think as a woman. I wouldn't think as who I am, which is N.C. Clark, a human being who does X, Y, and Z. I would have to preface every statement and every single engagement with, as a woman, I think it's horrible that tampons aren't free. It's this collectivist mindset, which we bring it back to the Borg. As a drone of the Borg, I believe in whatever the Borg Queen tells me.
Well, this sort of explains why they have such a hard time differentiating feminist from female.
There's no introspection. It's a group that
There's
basically
no introspection on their basic dogma, of course.
The foundation, yeah, itself, it leads to women who just aren't introspective, aren't really, how do we put this, aware of the environment that they're in.
And yet they seem to demand those qualities from other people.
Well, because you should agree with them.
They love nuance as long as it's their nuance. Somebody else's nuance, it's trolling, it's spam.
Well, it has to be, because you're not agreeing with them. They're saying that they're tolerant and nice. I don't understand.
We are the good guys. It's nothing more than if I started a movement or a party, called itself the good guys, and we could do anything we wanted. We could be the worst, the most rotten sons of bitches there ever was, but we're still the good guys. What's the matter? You don't want to join the good guys?
And that's religious mentality to a Q. Believers are righteous, unbelievers are unrighteous, and because they're bad and you're good, it doesn't matter what you do. You're good. Things that come from you are therefore good, and things that come from them.
The dictionary says that feminism is about the equality of men and women. It's right there in the dictionary. You don't know what feminism is.
Yeah. Yeah, and on that basis, because they stand for that, they're allowed to do whatever they want, and they're allowed to treat their opposition however they want, which is
You know
always.
what? You know what? I think this is a good time. I said this on a couple, 2 or 3 episodes ago, but I'm going to go and tell the eye and ear, the ear and eye joke again right now because I think it's great, and I think NC would enjoy this. This joke, this takes place in the Soviet Union back in the old days. A man goes into the medical clinic one day, the People's Medical Clinic, for some free Soviet health care. He says to the receptionist, "I want to see ear and eye doctor." And the receptionist says, "Well, what do you mean ear and eye doctor? Do you want an ear doctor or do you want an eye doctor?" The man says, "I want to see ear and eye doctor." The receptionist says, "Well, what do you mean? Do you want an ear doctor or do you want an eye doctor? Make up your mind." "I must see ear and eye doctor. Take me to ear and eye doctor." And the receptionist says, "What do you mean ear and eye doctor? Why do you want an ear and eye doctor?" And the man says, "I want to see ear and eye doctor because I am always hearing one thing and seeing something else." Doesn't that pack it into a nutshell? So we all need to take a trip to the ear and eye doctor. Just that what we're dealing with is an ear and eye joke on a grand scale.
But to bring everything back to that to the original topic of the UN thing there, I think what's going on here is that it's been, and I think that I think NC Clark, you might be a bit more educated on this than I am, or not. The the UN is basically, they're backing off. They've been made, this whole report has been made enough of a laughing stock that even the Ralph retort reported that that Zoe Quinn was trying to distance herself from it because it was just so poorly researched and it was just such a big joke.
And some other feminists.
Yeah.
Zoe wasn't the only one.
So this is what we're seeing is I think in the end what we're seeing here is their first ham-fisted attempt at passing an internet censorship bill. Now this may have come off as a joke, and a bunch of people may be saying, well, maybe laughing it off because it was so pathetic. But that doesn't mean they're going to stop.
No, of course not. They're going to try again, and they're going to play their cards closer the next time.
This was a test run, I think.
Yeah.
This was just because, on the grand scheme of things, no one really knows who Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian are. But if it was someone like, let me think.
Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, that kind of high-level people, and they were complaining about, I guess, harassment, then it might get something, I guess, done somewhere.
That is concerning.
Yeah.
Or who's the vice president? The guy who signed VAWA.
Biden.
Biden?
Joe Biden, fucking captain of the White Knights.
Oh, he is a terrible, terrible man. He's a despicable man.
But yeah, in the end, I think that laughing something like this off is a big mistake. I think that this is someone showing their hand.
Yeah.
As authoritarians to the bone, and I think that rather than laughing it off, we should keep making a big deal about it, because if we forget about it, then it's just going to.
It'll come back again, and we won't recognize it when it does.
Yeah, or what they'll do is they just won't make it so public next time. They won't have a couple of speakers in the UN. They'll have like what they do with drug laws. back when I was a pot activist, what they would do is they would the government they would sign into law a bill that was supposed to deal with meth labs, right? That was its primary function. But if you would read down through the specific, because like who doesn't want to pass a law to shut down meth labs, right? But if you would read through it, it also had provisions that would have particularly harsh penalties on people who would make like hash or weed cookies or things like that because of the way it was worded. It was like if they put it in if they make a derivative of marijuana, that makes it even more dangerous. It's basically like manufacturing meth. They'll try to sneak these things in like that, and so everybody should be on their toes, and we should really have our ear to the ground for more provisions like this in the future.
And let's not forget about the Istanbul Convention. NC, are you familiar with the Istanbul Convention?
No, I'm not.
Oh, well, that's the thing they're passing in the European Union. It's basically a thing meant to combat violence against women, and there's all kinds of little, undercover totalitarian features being snuck in there.
Does it specifically say violence against women?
Talks about violence.
Like the title of it is that, because if that's the case, that's always like a red flag for me. Anytime they specifically name a marginalized group it's in the bill.
Let me assure you that the Istanbul Convention is all of that. It's got red flags popping up all over.
Oh no!
Thicker than quills on a porcupine. Okay? So. One of the little goodies in there, one of the most succulent little tidbits in there is they would be making laws against anti-feminism. They're definitely targeting anti-feminism, whatever the hell anti-feminism is.
Yeah. Well, I'm anti-feminist. I put anti-feminism right on my website.
I am anti-feminist. I am non-feminist, and I like to kind of oscillate back and forth between those two words.
Yeah. Well, again, one must necessarily be a non-feminist to be an anti-feminist.
Exactly.
But just like all poodles are dogs, but not all dogs are poodles. But oh God, what was I going to say? Just any time. Oh, right. I know what I was going to say. I know it's not that we're not friends with John the Other anymore. It's just that John the Other isn't friends with us anymore.
MGTOW. We're not the MGTOWs. Just aren't friends. The MGTOW Club are not friends with us anymore.
Yeah, the MGTOW sectarians are no longer friends with us. But I do still like to watch his videos, and the thing that his most recent video, actually, because John's always produced amazing content, was that he said, like, what is the world going to look like when men, by and large, understand female aggression? Because male aggression is very overt. Male aggression, everybody understands. Female aggression, most women understand. In fact, all women understand. Most men do not. Right? Female aggression is usually it's something that you do. It's getting someone else to fight on your behalf, usually by a claim of having been harmed or victimized yourself. And that's what we're looking at with all these violence against women laws.
Social engineering, in effect.
Yeah, we are inflicting harm upon our own civilizations, preventing people from saying what they want under the guise of protecting women. Right? You just tell people that this is going to help women. This is going to protect women from all that harm that's out there. and they'll sign up to it because they don't understand female aggression.
And they don't think very deeply about what they're being told, that as well. You know, they don't question that there is violence against women.
Well, there is, but there's significantly less than there is violence against men.
Well, exactly. I was going to get to that. Yeah, exactly. The fact that violence against women is a thing that ought to become a matter for paramount concern, as opposed to violence in general.
Yeah, and but yeah, always keep an ear to the ground. In the words of Noam Chomsky, if you don't turn on to politics, politics will turn on you. Keep an ear to the ground when it comes to anything, any bill that is brought in for the sake of protecting women. Always view something like that with skepticism.
That's right.
And tell other people that it's around.
There's always contraband hidden behind those words, protecting women.
Yeah, make other people aware of it. That's the thing, because they're going to try to usher in future totalitarian anti-free speech bills that are going to be a lot more professional and a lot less ridiculous than this one.
It's going to be on a slippery slope, and it's going to go faster and faster and harder to pull out of it.
So yeah, so if you keep an eye on American or Canadian or UN politics, and you see something being signed into law on the basis of that it's going to help women, tell everyone you know, shout it from the rooftops, let the rest of us know about it. And with that, I think we should move on to the next item.
Well, I was going to. I could finish reading this article because I've only gone about 1/3 of the way through it, but I think we've, I think we've squeezed the juice out of it, really. I'm going to look through the list here. Yeah, that UN thing, everybody keep an eye on that. It's backfired on certain people pretty badly. And we can laugh at it, but we should not, as Nick says, laugh it off. There's a difference between laughing at something and then laughing it off. Laughing it off is a way of it's like a forget about it pill. Okay, let's not take that forget about it pill. So, what shall we do here? Cue number 2. Cue number 3 is about India. Let's go to India. We're not going to get both of these in here. We've got 20 minutes remaining. India. Women in the cause of men in distress. India is where it's happening as far as all things men's rights. That's the hot spot. They got it together in that country more and better than anybody else. So let's find out what's happening in India. Women in the cause of men in distress. The growing men's rights movement in India gets more members from the opposite sex, meaning opposite from men. A few days after a Facebook post by a female Delhi college student, Jasleen Kaur, accusing a young man, Saravjit Singh, of making obscene remarks at a busy traffic intersection, an English news TV debate was held on this incident. The post had attracted considerable attention online, and its content, that of a man hurling sexual obscenities and threats at a woman, even having the gall to pose for a picture she clicked of him while people looked on, was seen as yet another case of sexual harassment. Well, maybe it was sexual harassment. Let's keep reading here. The TV panelists had been picked along expected lines. The woman whose post it was, Kaur, teared up as she recalled her ordeal. 2 female guests, an activist and a comic, obliged their host by sharing similar anecdotes and experiences. And the heads of several activists and commentators in screen boxes bobbed with righteous indignation, since the accused, Singh, who wasn't present their ire was directed at two men who spoke of restraint. They were shut up by the anchor and other participants whenever they tried to speak. But on the top left panel of the TV screen was a curious participant, Deepika Bhardwaj, a documentary filmmaker and a woman, one might add, defended to the point of a spat with the anchor the right of the accused to narrate his version of events. The right of the accused to narrate his version of events. Well, that sounds like a basic right in the criminal justice system. Of course, this is India, so I don't know exactly how they do it in India, but it sounds pretty basic. The right of the accused to narrate his version of events. She also pointed out that there was a difference between an argument, which Singh claimed it was, and a charge of molestation, which Kaur was making it out to be. At one point, the anchor was so flabbergasted at Bhardwaj's perspective that he remarked in disbelief, "What kind of a woman are you?" By the time the TV debate played out, Delhi's chief minister Arvind Kejriwal, Arvind Kejriwal had congratulated Kaur for her bravery on Twitter. Nothing like bravery on Twitter. The Delhi police, which promptly found and arrested Singh, announced a cash reward of 50,000 rupees for Kaur. As it turns out, however, there are now several doubts about her allegations. An eyewitness account has emerged that discredits her version of events. Is anybody starting to see a pattern here that we've seen so many times before?
No, never. A pattern, you say?
A pattern here?
Oh my, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I stand corrected, and I guess there's no pattern going on.
You mean describing the authoritarians as brave from having from oh God, did you guys see I was actually featured in a little Girl Writes What video where she took that Swedish reporter who was talking to Sarkeesian and Quinn, and she's in 20 years I've never been attacked, but I listened to you and I'm so afraid, and you're both so brave. I mean,
this was the Swedish feminist talking to Zoe Quinn.
It was. Here, I'll look it up.
It was at a conference, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Bravery to be a feminist in Sweden. That's one of the least brave things you can do in Sweden is to be a feminist.
Well, apparently, according to Rebel Media, the anti-immigration party is number one in Sweden right now. So, I don't know about all the information that we're getting about Sweden.
I've heard that things are starting to change in Sweden. No, I mean recently.
Yeah.
And that's part of a pattern as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing, is that these SJWs are going to push it so far. Anita Pieta was her name. Anita Pieta, the original video was Online Harassment Q&A Conference 2013 by YouTube user Media Evolution. And of course the comments have been disabled, and out of 11,550 views, 79 thumbs up and 827 thumbs down.
79 thumbs up and 827
thumbs down.
Okay.
But yeah, you've got this. The pattern is calling people brave, and now you may feel out of the loop. You both may feel out of the loop. NC Clark, did you also watch Mission Hill?
No.
Okay, that is a great cartoon. But there's an episode where a teacher he's cynically like where one of the students ostensibly gets beaten up during a mugging, and the teacher he refers to them and he goes, "He's brave," because apparently anybody who gets attacked is brave now.
Oh wait, you have to record it. If you're a feminist, you have to record it.
Brave for not running away, I guess.
Well, brave in there running away, brave in running away and crying.
And
Good
blogging
God.
about it.
Oh, okay. Brave for being in touch with your feelings, maybe. Could that be what? Let's continue. Let's carry on with reading this article here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Brick wall of death here pretty quick.
Yeah.
Boy, this time has gone fast. Melted like a snow cone in front of a blowtorch, hasn't it?
Indeed.
Bardwaj is one of several female members. Oh, wait a minute. Well, went too far there. By the time the TV debate played out, Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal had congratulated Kaur for her bravery on Twitter. The Delhi police, which promptly found and arrested Singh, announced a cash reward of 50,000 rupees for Kaur. As it turns out, however, there are now several doubts about her allegations. Yes, a woman makes allegations, people jump to believe it and jump to defend her, and then it comes out later that she's not being altogether truthful. Where have we seen this pattern before? Okay, an eyewitness account has emerged that discredits her version of events. When Bardwaj returned to her cell phone after the TV debate, she found several messages filled with obscenities, both from men and women, on her Twitter account. A series of tweets addressed to her by one particular woman caught her eye. "Where are the rapist pimps? I can't see anyone now. Maybe busy giving blowjobs to the rapists. And this shameless woman hater Deepika needs to be kicked hard. She's all with molesters." My God, this is in India, and I can't tell the difference between feminists in India and feminists in the USA, feminists in Canada, feminists in England, feminists almost any place on earth where feminism has spread. I mean, this is a global cancer we're looking at here, folks. Okay, you got to study this stuff a lot, as much as people like us do, to really begin to see it. Yeah, if you don't, then you would think people like us are crazy. But I can assure you we're not. Moving on, Bardwaj is one of several female members of India's fledgling men's rights movement, which I'm not a part of, by the way. What began as a support group for husbands who had been falsely accused of making dowry demands, the group has now grown in size. Various NGOs and forums across the country serving under the umbrella group of Save Indian Family. Its stated aim is now to fight misandry in society and push for gender neutrality in law. The members of the group support and advise one another in their legal troubles, from false dowry charges to false rape cases, raise awareness of men's rights and their medical problems, and lobby for the formation of a central men's welfare body like the National Commission for Women. As the group has grown, so oddly it would seem, the number of its female members. Why would women support the scrapping and modifications of laws that have been instituted for their protection? That, too, in what is regarded as a deeply patriarchal society with a fervent bias against women? According to Preeti Samat, an active member of the Vastav Foundation, a men's rights group under Save India Family, this is because of the presence of laws that are increasingly being misused to target men. Pattern here, anybody? Pattern? When there is a problem and you don't even recognize it, let alone address it, people, men or women, who suffer or witness it will join you, she says. According to Amit Deshpande, president of Vastav Foundation, there are between 100 and 150 active female members across the country. Most female men's rights activists are those who have been drawn to the cause because their relatives have been accused of ill-treating women. Samat's son was arrested for allegedly demanding dowry, which she denies. She claims that her daughter-in-law is demanding 50 rupees lakh, okay, whatever that, as an out-of-court settlement to drop the charge. Bhardwaj has had a relative who had suffered a similar charge. Like their male counterparts, the female activists participate in the group's activities. They go for protest marches, counsel and support male victims, and approach politicians and the media to put out their opinions. Some, like Samat, are part of WhatsApp groups like Mashal, Mothers and Sisters of Husbands Against Abuse of Law, also the name of the women's wing of the Vastav Foundation that helps share information and arrange help for individual victims. Uma Kiranam, an author and illustrator based in Hyderabad, who is the former president and founder of two groups, the All India Men's Welfare Association, a men's rights group, and the All India Forgotten Women's Association, which represents the interests of mothers and sisters of men, also focuses on media representations of men. She has started campaigns against TV advertisements like those by Gillette, where women urge men to shave stubbles and call those who keep beards lazy. Well, I'm half lazy because I shave the sides of my face pretty well, but I keep the mustache and chin area pretty much untouched. So I'm not totally lazy. Now, that's good. Now, and I don't use a Gillette. I don't think I use Gillette. Now, where were we? And Kiptli, where the bride slaps her groom on their wedding night because the bed creaks. Why should a man with a beard be termed lazy? And the Kitpli ad, if the genders of the characters were flipped and the woman was to receive a slap, it would be termed abusive and offensive, with the bed even indicative of being a dowry gift. We need to be sensitive towards men and their needs as well, she says. And this article is rather long. Yeah, you know what? I don't think we have time to finish this lengthy article. We got about 7 minutes left before we hit the brick wall of death for Vanguard Report number 65. So, hey, guys, NC, Nick, got anything bubbling in your brains right now?
Well, the usual is that people like to bring up places like India as the worst, as really terrible for women. But when you're looking at it from our perspective, when you've got the information that we do, you can see that feminism is just as totalitarian, if not more so, there than it is here.
And things are not so necessarily so bad for women in India as you may have heard. The news that we get here is filtered, to put it mildly.
It kind of reminds me, like this entire situation where we look at feminism across the world in different areas. It kind of reminds me of my argument against a feminist who said, well, certain places need feminism. They need, in the Middle East, they need feminism. I don't believe that's the case, because in those societies, it's horrible for men and women.
Exactly.
And I think this is another example of that. Again, good point, Nick. We always hear about horrible things in India happening to women, and this is another example that just shows that that's not necessarily even the case.
There are, I think, 2 points to be made about India and other faraway countries where we hear these horrible tales about the oppression of women. One, those stories are not as true as you think they are. They are exaggerated. And that's the first thing. And the second thing is that equally bad things are happening to men. What we have in some of those parts of the world is human rights violations.
Exactly.
And if I say if things are no worse for women in general than they are for men, then there's no reason to have any such thing as feminism. The only purpose feminism serves is to cherry pick out the bad stuff that's happening to women and the bad stuff happening to men gets shoved into the shadows where you can't see it, and the light gets shown on the sufferings of women in this life, and that puts feminism in a nutshell right there. And we are not, most of us, in a very good position to double check or to fact check things that are happening in distant countries. You hear about things like honor killings, et cetera, in parts of the world like Afghanistan. And those things, they do happen, but are they as commonplace and widespread as we might be led to believe? And from what I can gather, those horrible stories we heard, they happen. They're not the norm. They're not happening. They're not busting out all over the place. They are very much exceptional things happening in remote, backward areas. The idea that there's a rape epidemic going on in India, from what I can gather, there is no such thing. It's just completely false. And we just don't. Basically, none of the media should be trusted, especially if it's media concerning or media coverage concerning remote parts of the world where we're in a very poor position to check for ourselves. If it's closer to home, then you can lean on that branch a little bit more. You've got some way to gauge, is it baloney or not? But talking about things happening way across the world, you should be extremely, extremely, extremely skeptical about any of it if it's being represented to you accurately. And we got about 4 minutes left. We got to wrap this up. Last words from anybody?
Thanks for having me on.
Great. You've been a great guest.
Thank you.
I would love to see you come back some other time, anytime you want.
Yes, you'll always be welcome around here, NC Clark.
Yes,
Yay,
yes,
thanks. I feel the love.
There is a welcome mat. There is a welcome mat with the name NC Clark written on it in front of the Vanguard Report door.
Well, here's where we spring it on you, that the cyber touch this whole time has actually been a gangbang.
Oh my goodness! I didn't feel a thing.
Well,
that's because MRAs have tiny penises.
Oh, okay.
You're out of touch with your feelings,
But,
that hasn't been the first time someone's told me that.
I mean, that's supposed to be the expertise of women, being in touch with their feelings.
But as usual, I would like to remind everyone that everything I do is just to broadcast my MRA-ness here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and to let everyone know that if they sympathize with my politics in any way, they can drop me a line through mensrightsedmonton@gmail.com. They can check out my YouTube channel, Men's Rights Edmonton, or they can follow me on Twitter @mensrightsed, or they can go to the website mensrightsedmonton.com. And with that, I am done.
Okay, well, Nick, you broadcast your MRA-ness. Of course, Nick can do that. I will not broadcast my MRA-ness since I am not an MRA, quote unquote. Anyway, so you can reach us at the Vanguard Report. The address is Vanguard Report, one word, Vanguard Report @usa.com. That's Vanguard Report @usa.com. Send love mail, send hate mail, send meh mail. It all goes there. Vanguard Report @usa.com. And time for the closing line. What we always say at the close of the show, remember, feminism is what we say it is. Not what the dictionary says it is. Not what any feminist out there says it is. Feminism is what we say it is. Welcome to the age of non-feminist input. Feminism is what we say it is. Everybody, next week it will be Vanguard Report episode 66. NC Clark, I thank you for being here. Nick, I thank you for being here. Everybody, I thank you for listening. Feminism is what we say it is. Folks, see you next week. Take care. Ciao.